Hi, everybody. Good morning and a happy 4th of July to all of you attending. So for those of you joining us today, our peacetime session is called Purifying the Mind. So I guess we can kick off the second half of the year with a pure mind. It'll help us see what's ahead. Isn't that exciting? Get ready for what's ahead with a pure mind so we can be open-minded and welcome the challenges that we're going to overcome for the rest of the year. Before we begin, we'll do a brief yoga session as usual. If you can't catch us on Zoom, please join us on Facebook, our YouTube channel, or you can check us out on our webpage. Another website worth checking out is called the mindgem.com, mindgem.com, mindgem.com. On there, you can find tons of tips for meditation techniques, and you can start building a community. There's lots of videos and people involved, so you can connect with others and see where your meditation, how your meditation progresses over time. All right, without further ado, let's stretch before we listen to Venerable Nicholas's wisdom talk on purifying the mind and have guided meditation with him. All right, bye-bye.
The next few poses will be done in a standing position. Please move slowly and at your own pace. Keep the sturdy chair nearby for balance if needed. If you find that I'm talking faster than you are moving, please take your time and do fewer repetitions. Take a nice deep inhale and exhale. Place the feet about hips-width apart and grounded on the floor. Lift the toes and spread them nice and wide and feel the navel pull gently in towards the spine. push the toes into the floor and lean forward just a little bit. Feel the muscles that keep you steady. Lean back just a little bit and feel the toes come up. Feel the muscles that keep you steady in this position. Now push all four corners of the feet into the floor. Notice the steadiness of mountain pose. Notice how the steadiness of mountain pose feels. On the next inhale, roll the shoulders towards the ears, back and down so the shoulders are slightly open. Let the palms rest open to the side. Inhale and let the arms rise with the palms facing up. Exhale, bend at the elbows and allow the hands to come down the center line. Sink into the knees just a little. Repeat this again. Inhale, lift the arms with the palms facing up. Allow the hands and face to be relaxed. Continue with this movement at your own pace. Breathe as you move and try to coordinate the breath with the movement. On the next breath, lift the arms back over the head. Fingertips point in, palms face up. Imagine that you have candles in the palms of your hands and you do not want to spill them. Turn the fingertips so they face behind you. The palms remain up. Turn the fingertips to the side and then to the front like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again, towards one another, and then forwards like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again. Let's do this rotation one more time. After the second rotation, allow the hands to cascade down by the side and let them rest. Pause for one slow inhale and exhale. One more breath. Inhale, exhale. This next exercise is excellent for strengthening the spine and gently stretching the muscles of the back, front, and sides. Attempt to make the movement easeful and gentle. We will do these movements with various arm positions. The first arm position is the easiest. Please be sure to stay with the one that feels best for your body. We will demonstrate them all. Take the right hand to the waist and then the left. Roll the shoulders open. And on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale to the center. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale back to the center. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. And on the next inhale, gently pull the navel towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin and feel a sense of lengthening through the front of the body. On the next exhale, begin to fold gently forward. It does not have to be all the way. Bend the knees slightly. Inhale and rise back to a standing position. Open the left arm to the side. Keep the elbow bent. Leave the right hand on the waist. Inhale. Exhale, lean slightly to the right, and then return back to the center. Bring the left hand down to the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. Exhale and lengthen to the left. Return to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Gently pull the navel in towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward halfway. Inhale back to standing. Open the left arm again. Inhale, and on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale and return back to the center. Place the left hand on the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale and return back to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Lengthen through the front of the body. Slightly pull the shoulder blades together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward. Knees slightly bent. Inhale and return to standing in mountain pose. Pause for a moment. Inhale and exhale. For this warrior sequence, attempt to keep the movements gentle and relaxed. If you notice that you are struggling, move the feet closer together. Lower the arms or make the movements smaller. This pose is great for strengthening the legs, respiration, and opening the shoulders. Step the left foot forward just a few feet. The back foot points in at a 45-degree angle. The front knee bends and the hips face front if possible. Inhale, open the arms and bend at the elbows. On the exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards each other. Inhale, open the arms and push the heart softly forwards. Relax the shoulders. Exhale, bring the arms together. Inhale, open the arms to where you feel comfortable. Exhale, relax the arms inwards. Inhale, open and expand. Exhale, contract. Inhale, exhale. Bring the hands back down by the side. Return to mountain pose. One breath here. Inhale, exhale. Step the right foot forward. Take a moment, there's no rush. Ground the back foot into the floor. Bend the front knee. When you are ready, open the arms. Inhale. Exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards one another. Inhale, open the arms. This is a relaxed opening in the chest. Exhale, bring the hands and arms towards one another. Inhale, repeat again, creating spaciousness with a full inhale. Exhale, contract and relax the arms slightly. 2 more times at your own pace. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Let the hands rest down by the side and return back to mountain pose. Pause here for a few breaths.
Welcome back to the 31st online episode of Peacetime, hosted every Sunday morning by Peace Point with myself, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from Dhammakaya International Meditation Center in Azusa, California. Today's session will be about an hour and 10 minutes long and will consist of a 25-minute talk and 25 minutes of meditation, finishing up with 20 minutes of conclusion and news updates. Last time you saw me, we looked at avoiding unwholesomeness. With the Dhamma talk today, we will continue with our exploration of living Buddhism with the topic of purifying the mind. As usual this session, in case anyone out there is actually listening, I would encourage you to send in any questions you have by emailing me at peacetime.questions@gmail.com so that I can have a shot at answering those questions next time round. Both the Dhammapada and the Digha Nikaya's Mahapadana Sutta summarize Buddhist practice as consisting of three tasks: of avoiding evil, doing good deeds, and purifying the mind. The logic of karma, merit and demerit, which we've studied over the past 3 sessions, have already dealt with much of the subject matter of the 3 principles of practice, under the categories of cultivating goodness and avoiding unwholesomeness. All that remains, which will be the subject matter for today's session, is describing the task of purifying the mind. Purification might mean different things in different spiritual traditions, but in Buddhism, purification is very firmly connected with the idea of meditation. The Buddha stated in the Bhavana Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya that meditation would be effective, irrespective of whether a practitioner believes in its efficacy or not. Just as a hen can get her eggs to hatch, not by believing in incubation, but by sitting on a nest of eggs for a sufficient length of time. Although there are different ways of practicing meditation to the point where the mind becomes free of thought, which in the Dhammakaya tradition is known as the standstill of the mind, Buddhism offers a shared system for describing the depth of meditation experience, irrespective of the meditation method used. According to both the Visuddhimagga and the Abhidhamma Sangha, the depth of meditation can either be expressed in terms of visual objects or in terms of the qualities of the meditational state. The 3 levels of depth in meditation expressed in terms of visual objects comprise the preparatory image, the acquired image, and the counter image, as shown on the slide in green. The first stage is called the preparatory image, or Parikamma Nimitta. It's achieving the sort of image a meditator initially tries to conjure up in the mind. It is generally vague, 2-dimensional, and not clear enough that the meditator would confuse it with something seen with the eye. The second stage, called the acquired image, or Ugaha Nimitta, is an image that develops spontaneously from the preparatory image. It is not yet stable, just an object of meditation in the mind. It cannot yet be expanded or contracted at will. It is different from the preparatory image in that it has gone beyond the image that was originally imagined. The third stage, called the counter image, or Patipagga Nimitta, is the sort of inner image that the meditator is able to expand and contract at will. It is still not yet the first absorption, but it is a stable object of meditation in the mind. To describe meditation progress in a different way, especially for techniques that do not emphasize visual content, the quality of the meditation state is described instead of relying on what is seen, because even for some people who practice visualization techniques, nothing is seen even though progress is made. Although the Abhidhamma Sangha says meditation can be described in terms of the qualities of the associated feeling or the quality of the meditational state. The three levels of depth in meditation expressed as qualities of meditational state comprise the preparatory concentration, neighborhood concentration, and attainment concentration, as shown on the slide in red. The first stage would be preparatory concentration, or parikamma bhavana. This describes the ability of the meditator to place their attention at a chosen place inside the body as they first start to learn meditation. The second stage would be neighborhood concentration, or upachara bhavana. This describes the weak degree of concentration achieved when a meditator can start to discern something in the mind. When the mind develops, at the point of focus, a certain degree of stickiness or inertia of the mind. A third stage would be known as attainment concentration, or appana bhavana. This describes the quality of concentration that can lead to access to the absorptions when the mind becomes free of the five hindrances, in other words, sense desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, absent-mindedness and doubt, and hence becomes unified. Beyond attainment concentration, or the counter-image, we would come across higher levels of concentration, such as the absorptions at various levels. These are states of meditation that go beyond the initial unification of the mind. The logic of Buddhist meditation is that whatever the starting point in meditation, eventually there'll be a convergence of paths as the practitioner progresses in meditation toward enlightenment. For meditation, if you survey different traditions with their differing techniques, there is a huge spectrum of different starting points. In meditation alone, there are at least 40 traditional methods of meditation, which one can use as one's starting point. The reason that there are so many techniques to choose from is because traditionally it was the job of a meditation teacher to sort their students into any one of 6 dispositions and to allocate them a sort of meditation that would be suitable to that disposition. The 6 dispositions mentioned in the Mahanidesa, Julanidesa, and Visuddhimagga comprise disposition for sense desire, hatefulness, delusion, faithfulness, discernment, or rationalizing. Meditation teachers categorize their students according to the manner in which the student dresses, eats, sleeps, works, or looks at objects. Also, by the meditator's handwriting, posture, or how tidy they keep their surroundings. Some teachers, such as Robert Mann and Rose Yude, explain these 6 positions are positive and negative facets of greed, hatred, and delusion in the mind. The sense desire disposition is seen as the negative side of greed or lobha, whereas the faithful disposition is seen as the positive aspect. The hatred disposition is seen as the negative side of anger or dosa, whereas the discernment disposition, which means quickness to discern the main point in a situation, is seen as the positive aspect. The deluded disposition is seen as the negative side of ignorance or moha, whereas the rationalizing disposition is seen as the positive aspect. To give meditation teachers sufficient choice to cater for the full range of student dispositions, the Visuddhimagga and the Abhidhamma Sangha list a menu of 40 different types of meditation. It is to be noted that all of these involve meditation upon objects brought inside the body to make them right meditation or samma samadhi. If the objects are external to the body, they would be considered forms of hypnosis or non-Buddhist meditations or miccha samadhi. The 40 meditation methods comprise 10 visual meditations, 10 graveyard meditations, 10 reflections, and 10 miscellaneous practices. The visual meditations or kasina include 4 elemental visualizations or bhuta kasina, on the earth element, patavi kasin, the water element or apo kasin, the fire element or tejo kasin, and the air element or vayo kasin. Then comes 4 colored visualizations or varna kasin, of blue, nila kasin, yellow, pita kasin, red or lohita kasin, and white or odata kasin. And to finish off with, there are visualizations of light or aloka kasin, and the visualization of space or akasa kasin. Then come the 10 graveyard practices or asupa, and they are, and I'm sorry if you are in the middle of your breakfast, reflections on human remains at different stages of decomposition. They comprise a meditation on corpses that are bloated, discolored, festered, cut up, chewed up, mangled, mutilated, blood-stained, worm-infested, or reduced to a skeleton. And before you rush to try any of these graveyard meditations at home, please listen to the limitations I will come back to in just a moment. Next come the 10 reflections or anusati, which include recollection or mindfulness of the Buddha, Buddhanusati, the Dhamma or Dhammanusati, the Sangha or Sanghanusati, the purity of one's precepts or Silanusati, generosity or Jaganusati, the qualities of angels or Devatanusati, death or Marana Sati, body mindfulness or Gayagatasati, meditation on the breath or Anapanasati, and qualities of nirvana or Upasamanusati. The 10 remaining methods of meditation comprise 4 divine abidings, technically referred to as Brahmavihara or Apamanya, meditation on loving kindness or metta, compassion or karuna, sympathetic joy or mudita, and equanimity or ubekha, meditation on the loathsomeness of food or ahare patikula sanya, analysis of the 4 elements in the body or jatu dhatu vavatana, and meditation on the 4 absorptions of the formless sphere or arupa, comprising the spheres of infinity of space or akasananchayatana, infinity of consciousness or vinyananchayatana, the sphere of nothingness or akinchanyayatana, and the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception or neva sanyayatana. For those who have a sense-desired disposition, any of the graveyard meditations would be suitable. These graveyard practices are inadvisable for those of other dispositions, and I'll give some examples of why in a good and a bad way after our meditation today. Besides graveyard practices, mindfulness of the body is said to be a suitable starting point for those with a sense-desire disposition. For those who have a hatred disposition, any of the colored visualizations or meditation on the divine abidings are said to be suitable starting points. For those who have a deluded disposition, breathing meditation is said to be a suitable starting point. For those who have a faithful disposition, a recollection of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the purity of one's precepts, generosity or angels, are said to be suitable starting points. For those who have a discernment disposition, breathing meditation, meditation on the loathsomeness of food, or analysis of the 4 elements in the body are said to be suitable starting points. And for those who are rationalizers, any of the meditations on elemental visualizations or meditation on breathing are said to be suitable starting points. The remaining sorts of meditation, such as a visualization of light or space, or the recollection of the qualities of nirvana, are said to be universal in their disposition suitability. The 40 techniques of meditation also differ as to the degree which they can facilitate progress. The recollections of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, the purity of one's precepts, generosity, angels, death and nirvana, meditation on the loathsomeness of food, and analysis of the 4 elements in the body are said to give results, at best, to the level of neighborhood concentration or the acquired image. The 10 meditations on corpses and mindfulness of body are said to give results at best to the level of attainment concentration, but can go no further than the first absorption. Only the visualizations and mindfulness of breathing can take a beginner to the higher levels of concentration. Meditation on the divine abidings and the 4 absorptions of the formless sphere are not suitable for a beginner because they need to build upon a platform of a mind free of thought, attained through other techniques. In conclusion, there are only 2 types of meditation which are universal, by which I mean not restricted to a particular character type, and which can lead all the way from the beginning to higher levels of concentration, namely visualizations of light or space, of which Dhammakaya meditation is a good example. So you can trust in both the suitability and the potential for progress in the technique we already practice. The Buddhist scriptures express progress through mid-range of meditation progress in terms of absorptions or jhana, which the Saleka Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya describes as consisting of 4 levels of absorption, although more elaborate versions are also described less frequently elsewhere in the scriptures. Differentiation between the different levels of absorption are traditionally made in terms of the presence or absence of absorption factors of initial application or vitakka, continuous application or vichara, joy or piti, happiness or sukha, equanimity or ubekha, and one-pointedness or ekaggata. In the higher range of meditation progress beyond the absorptions, scriptural guidance becomes rather ambiguous, and practitioners must generally rely on a teacher or the oral tradition, by which I mean knowledge outside the scriptures, for clear guidance. Since it is difficult to verify progress in practice, we are particularly lucky in the Dhammakaya tradition to have rather more specific guidance. So we turn now to look at how in the Dhammakaya tradition we describe this same journey through the absorptions, because it is described not in terms of jhana factors, but in terms of what you might see along the way. What I'm about to describe is known as the system of the 18 inner bodies. So if we go in sequence from basic to advanced, what you get to see, even before you close your eyes, is the first of your bodies, which is your physical body. It is quite clear to see even for non-meditators, so you have certainly attained that one already just by being born at all. But what you may not know is that there's another 17 bodies inside that physical body, which you come into contact with if you progress through the meditational absorptions. If you're able to meditate at the sphere at the center of your body, your mind will eventually have a sense of being absorbed into that sphere, and your awareness is able to pass through the center. In between each of the bodies are 6 inner spheres. The Dhammanupassana Satipatthana sphere being the first, and then the sphere of morality or sila, the sphere of concentration or samadhi, the sphere of wisdom or panya, the sphere of liberation or vimutti, and the sphere of seeing and knowing of liberation or vimuttiyana-sthasana, each of which you expand outwards, rather like peeling the skin of an onion, and you peel off one layer and you get down to the next layer down, which maybe looks a little bit purer, a little bit more translucent than the last. Or you might compare it to dismantling one of those nesting Russian matryoshka dolls, where you take off the papa doll and you get the mama doll underneath. You take off the mama doll and you get the baby doll underneath. And just in case you are wondering, the pictures in the slides that follow are obtained from the main temple in Thailand, where there are a whole department of monks who are not only experts in meditation, but who are also gifted in fine arts. So those monks are responsible for drawing these pictures from first-hand experience. So having gone through the series of 6 spheres in this way, the 7th one is not a sphere anymore, it's an inner body. And I might add that in practice, meditators have different levels of self-awareness as they are passing through the central axis. Just as a person can take a car journey and they may fall asleep the moment the car sets off and wake up again at their destination, and they wouldn't be able to tell anyone how they got there. With meditation, similarly, some people can whisk through these inner experiences I'm describing, but they can't for the life of them tell you how they got there. For some, it's such a fleeting experience that they haven't had time to really notice what was happening during the meditation. However, given time and more mastery, they can slow down the process and see the inner spheres and bodies in more detail. So as your mind progresses inwards, we come to what's known as the refined human body, which looks pretty much the same as your physical body, but it seems to be frozen in time at the age of about 16. It's otherwise known as the astral body, the dream body, or the subtle body, which you would use when you are having a dream to go out and explore alternate realities while you are asleep. So that is the first layer in. The next layer, after another 6 spheres, of course, is what's known as the coarse angelic body. With each of the levels, you will notice that the inner bodies come in pairs, coarse and refined. Generally, coarse means the entry-level version, whereas as you progress with the same level of refinement, you get to the refined body, which is the high-end version of the same level of refinement, when you've reached a complete degree of mastery for that level. Here is the refined angelic body. The angelic body is female for females, male for males. What you can see is the sort of ornamentation, which is an identifying feature of the angelic level with armbands and so forth. From there, we come to the coarse form Brahma level, where the inner bodies transcend the male and female distinction. At this sort of godlike level, as usual, there are 2 levels for this form Brahma, coarse and refined. And here is the refined form Brahma level. One step further is the coarse formless Brahma body, where formless doesn't mean with no form, it means yet more refined than the form Brahma level. And here is the refined formless Brahma level. Beyond that, we come to what you would recognize as being like a Buddha statue, a body of enlightenment, rather similar to the Buddha statues you see in our temple branches. The reason being that our Buddha statues are based on an attainment rather than a historical personage. It is a body of enlightenment, otherwise known as a Dhammakaya, which is also the origin of the name of our temple and organization for obvious reasons, because it's based on the meditation experience which we hope everyone will one day attain. On the level of the body of enlightenment, it's not just one level, I should add, but there are 10 levels of Dhammakaya, which start with the switchover or Gotrapu level and continue with the levels otherwise known as the paths and fruits of nirvana that I have mentioned in previous sessions. So they comprise the stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant, each with coarse and refined versions, to give a total of 10. So to look at the big picture, if we study an overview of the 18 inner bodies, or a sample of them anyway, we see that they are broadly organized on 3 planes of meditational experience: the sensual plane, the form plane, and the formless plane, named according to the source of happiness in each plane. On the sensual plane, where pleasure comes via the senses, we have the physical body, the refined human body, and the angelic bodies. Because they are still in the sensual plane, you see male inner bodies for males, female inner bodies for females. Beyond the sensual plane, we come to the form plane, where pleasure is derived from meditational attainment at the form level. On the form plane, gender distinctions are transcended, since the nature of the associated consciousness is much more high-minded, and without putting too fine a point on it, the associated consciousness has somehow transcended its base nature and urges. Beyond the form Brahma plane, you get to the formless Brahma plane, and here again we see the coarse and refined formless Brahma bodies, where pleasure is derived from the meditational attainment at the formless level. And beyond the formless Brahma plane, you get to the level of bodies of enlightenment, which is beyond that formless plane. This is where you really have crossed the boundary between mundane or the Lokiya experience and reached the transcendental or Lokuttara experience. Since, according to the Dhammakaya understanding of meditation, a meditator's attainment leads not only to the arising of a body, but also to all the senses and knowledge associated with that body. When the meditator looks at something with the eyes of, let's say, an angel or of a Buddha, they will see things according to the reality, which is much more accurate than they could see using the eyes of their physical human body. This is the origin of the word special seeing, referred to in the etymology of the word vipassana. What one sees in one's meditation at this point is no longer a figment of your imagination, but is based on a more subtle reality, because you have a different platform upon which you are actually obtaining knowledge about the world. You're not suddenly using a different sort of vipassana meditation, but the special seeing is an inbuilt stage of maturation of the meditation which you have reached at this point. So, to refer to the unanswered question which we started out with of how, in the mid-stages of meditation, we can know what absorption we have reached, according to the Dhammakaya tradition, instead of using jhana factors, we can define the level of absorption as corresponding to the inner bodies seen at each level of attainment. So, for the first absorption at the lowest extent, the attainment will be marked by appearance of the Patamamaka sphere. In other words, the diamond bright sphere, technically known as the Dhammanupassana Satipatthana sphere. And for scriptural reference sticklers amongst you who want to compare this phenomenon to teachings in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, you will also find that word. For the first absorption at its highest extent, the attainment will be marked by appearance of the subtle human body. For the second absorption, the attainment will be marked by appearance of the angelic body. For the third absorption, the attainment will be marked by the appearance of the form Brahma body. For the fourth absorption, the attainment will be marked by the appearance of the formless Brahma body. And beyond the fourth absorption, the attainment will be marked by appearance of bodies of enlightenment on various levels. So, with all this talk of attaining inner spheres and inner bodies, this is probably a suitable juncture to take a break from talking about meditation and actually do some meditation. So at this time, we settle ourselves down for 25 minutes of meditation. If you would like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now, as you listen to my guidance. So start by finding a comfortable position for yourself in meditation. You might sit cross-legged on a meditation mat with your right leg on your left leg, or you can sit on a straight-back chair. In either case, your right hand should rest on your left hand, and the index finger of your right hand should touch against the thumb of your left hand, with your hands resting palm upwards on your lap, lightly and gently. And close your eyes very softly, as if you were only half closing your eyes, similar to the way you might close your eyes to go to sleep. Never squeeze your eyes closed, and make sure there's no pressure around your eyes. And fill your mind with a feeling of happiness and joy, so that your mind feels refreshed, pure, and clean on the inside, free of any sort of worries or anxieties whatsoever. Let go of all these things. Allow your mind to be empty, and imagine that inside yourself is just an empty space, without any organs or tissues, without any muscles or bones. Just like an empty cavity inside yourself, a hollow space within you, empty, rather like a crystal tube or a diamond pipe, bright and clear inside yourself. Once we understand the principles of meditation according to all we have learned, we'll realize that there are pure inner elements within ourselves which can offer us solace and healing in life, if we can reconnect with them. But to reconnect, we first need to refine our mind, to make the mind as refined as those inner elements themselves. The mind has to be as refined as the inner elements in order to perceive and experience them at first hand. Thus the mind needs to be very refined indeed, to be able to attain it, even to be able to see or feel those inner elements. Therefore our job as a meditator is to refine the mind to a point where we can experience the subtle inner reality. In our everyday life, down to the present day, we have been preoccupied with making our living, looking after our household and family, and there have been things that have caused our mind to become coarse, because we have to use our mind to think, speak, and take action. Therefore the mind becomes coarse, and once it's coarse, it's unable to reach the pure inner elements within ourselves. Everyday life habituates us to such coarseness of mind, as a result of all the struggles, conflict, and hardship we have to deal with in life. This is how our mind becomes, because when we have to struggle, when we have to have the words and actions to get by, sometimes we pick up the negative emotions from our colleagues at work, who are for the most part coarse of mind anyway. Therefore, when we come to meditate, our mind becomes gross and coarse, because it's always caught up with all the thoughts of the workplace. It's always appropriate to deal with coarse phenomena by coarse methodology. If we're dealing with subtle things, we have to use subtle methodology. If we use a methodology to fit the issue, there is nothing we cannot improve. We choose methodology appropriate to the issue we're dealing with. Knowing that the mind is subtle, we must use subtle methodology. It's a methodology which is not the same as for the things in the outside world. In the outside world we have to think, but when dealing with the mind it's important that we don't think. For the work of the outside world it's necessary to speak, but for the inner work we say nothing. For the work of the outside world it's necessary to move around, but for the inner work it's necessary to remain still. For meditation it's imperative that we don't attempt to think, speak, or do anything. We mustn't have any expectations about what we're going to see, because it's unlikely that we are just going to touch upon those pure inner elements by accident. The mind needs to become subtle first. Therefore, for the period of our meditation, we can forget about thinking, speaking, or doing anything. Simply allow the mind to remain in stillness at the center of the body, at the seventh base of the mind, which is located at the center of our stomach, about 2 finger breadths above the level of the navel, in the center of our body. The center of the body is particularly important because it's the only place in our body where the mind can stop. It is the place where mind and body can come into balance. It is aligned with the turning point of the deepest breath, and it is the center of wisdom in the body. We must bring our mind, which normally wanders all over the place, back to this point at the center of the body, in a soft and gentle way, resting it there consistently, lightly, and gently the whole of the time. If we can rest our mind at the center of the body in a light and gentle way, we'll have the feeling of expansion inside ourselves. Our eyes shouldn't stare down at our center. They should look straight ahead as they normally do, because they have nothing to do with the process of meditation. We will have the feeling as if there is expansion and spaciousness inside ourselves, which gives us a feeling as if our body seems to melt away into the atmosphere around us. Sometimes we may like to imagine a bright object at the center of the body, such as a bright shining sun, a full moon, a star, or a diamond at our center. But the way we imagine such an image should be in the same vein as already mentioned for resting the mind at the center, that is, gently, softly, and continuously, as if we were looking at a commonplace object such as a rose, something we don't bother to stare at, but which we can just gaze at gently. In fact, it doesn't have to be a rose, it could be any object which we are used to thinking of. Whatever we choose, we should imagine it continuously, in a light and gentle way. If we reach the perfect equilibrium in our meditation, we will have a sense of lightness and expansion at the center of the body. You find that the inner experience expands outwards, and this would be the right way of doing things. However, if we have a feeling in our meditation that something is blunt or stressed or narrow, then we shouldn't force ourselves to go further with meditation that feels like that. Better that you open your eyes and then close them to start all over again. We have to approach our meditation gently, lightly, and patiently, with our mind at a standstill at the center, in a subtle and gentle way, with our mind bright and clear at the center. In the beginning you may not see very much, but that doesn't matter, because if our mind is simply at a standstill at the center, before long we will have the feeling of lightness and expansion, bringing us a feeling of contentment in our meditation. We'll feel that we'd like to stay with this feeling for a long, long time. We won't have any feeling of boredom with our practice. If you find that this is how your meditation is going, then there's no need to change your methodology. There's no need to analyze or have a mental commentary on your practice. Don't try to make the meditation happen, but allow it to happen of its own accord. Allow your mind to become peaceful by itself. Don't try staring at the center of your body, and don't try using your eyes to see the object of meditation. There's no need to analyze or reflect on what you're doing. Just simply maintain your mind at the center, gentle and in comfort. And if you like, you may repeat the sound of the mantra to yourself, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang. You can repeat the mantra or not repeat it as you wish. If you find repeating it helps you, it means that you can keep on repeating it over and over again to yourself until your mind comes to a standstill at the center. Once your mind starts to come to a standstill, then the sound of Samma Arahang will die away by itself, almost as if you forgot to maintain it. But if your mind is not still and wanders to other matters, then you need to keep up the mantra for a little bit longer. But if your mind is no longer wandering and there are no more thoughts arising, you can let the mantra die down, and there's no need to maintain that mantra anymore. Continue merely by maintaining your mind gently and in stillness at your center. Eventually, spontaneous brightness will arise by itself, continuously at the center of the body, as soon as your mind overcomes the 5 hindrances. As for those who have seen brightness at their center, to the point that it remains in the mind, even though we might lie down to go to sleep at night, sometimes it feels that it will remain bright all night long, bringing us a feeling that we hardly need to sleep anymore. Some people worry about this, thinking that if they miss out on their sleep because of the inner brightness, before long, especially in the morning when they get up and have to go to work, they will be worried that they have not had enough rest. Because conventionally speaking, we are told we need 6 or 8 hours of sleep per night. But when we have brightness inside keeping us awake at night, there is no need to worry about the lack of sleep, looking pale and washed out in the morning, or lacking confidence in decision-making at work. Conventional knowledge only works for conventional people. It's only recommended that we need 6 or 8 hours of sleep at night because most people don't sleep very deeply. They spend all night tossing and turning in their sleep, waking and going back to sleep again. And their mind is not really resting when they're asleep. In fact, their 6 or 8 hours of sleep actually don't involve very much rest for the mind at all. But this is the norm for the majority of people. But for us who know the secret of meditation, the case is different, because the nervous system and the mind is already rested by the fact that meditation has relaxed us at a much deeper level. Through our meditation we feel refreshed, and sometimes, even though we meditate, we may fall asleep for an hour or so in a night. In fact, that is ample for the mind that is subtle. We'll wake up without feeling the need for additional rest. We have to let go of our preconceived ideas about our sleep needs. There's no need to worry about so-called conventional wisdom. The level of refreshedness from sleeping with brightness inside is superior by a long way to sleeping with darkness inside. If we close our eyes at night to brightness inside, then even a little rest counts for a lot. We will be filled with joy and happiness the whole of the time, the body adapting of its own accord. It will demand only the bare necessities of rest. Maybe 2 or 3 hours will be enough. From inside it will feel ample. Even as one is lying down to take one's rest, for those with a basis of meditation experience, there will be a sensation of one's consciousness being attracted through an expanding center in our body. Some may be afraid of that feeling. Some may even try to resist the feeling and wake themselves up, because they are afraid of apparently falling down inside themselves as if going over a humpback bridge, or suddenly dropping like an aircraft in air turbulence. In fact, there is no need to resist the feeling. On the contrary, such a feeling is a sign of progress in one's inner experience. It's like our mind is being drawn inwardly towards the purer elements inside ourselves, rather like being drawn to a huge magnet down inside us. We will be attracted inside and have a feeling rather like we are moving, even though we might be lying on a stationary bed. But there's no danger in it at all. Don't let such experiences put you off, because there's nothing to worry about. If ever you come across such a sensation, just remain in the same position, because only good things will come of such an experience. So you should go with the experience. It's not everyone who has such a good experience in their meditation. Of the 7.6 billion people in the world, it's only a handful who ever attain such an experience. It shows that our mind is starting to become pure, and that our self-training is beginning to give fruit. In fact, this is the nature of the mind when it becomes refined, that it will attract us inwards towards a more refined dimension. It doesn't make a difference if you are sitting in meditation or lying down, if your mind is refined and focused at the center to this point. So don't let it bother you, and don't let your eyes open when you come to this point, or try to resist the sensation. You should play along, remaining impartial, not worrying where your consciousness is being attracted to, because in any case it's not going to harm you. For harm to come to a person, they have to be suffering from some sort of disease first. We mustn't judge ourselves by the assumptions of conventional people. However, for those touching on such an experience, you should be proud of yourself that your mind has become as refined to this point. If your mind is not refined, you have no way of reaching such an experience. If your mind is not refined, you will never experience inner brightness. However, equipped with such inner brightness, you will be able to relax more deeply than the majority of people and be able to sleep more deeply. You will get more benefit out of the short time you are asleep. You will lie down at night with a feeling of expansion within yourself as the happiness inside is expanding and pervading throughout your body. Equipped with a mind full of happiness, you can maintain contentment whatever situation you find yourself in. Thus, with an accurate understanding of these issues, you can make more efficient use of your meditation time. You won't waste time trying to use force to make your meditation progress. If the image is not clear to you, adjust the subtlety of your mind rather than trying to adjust the clarity of the image directly. Accept whatever you have to see inside. Whatever there is to see, just observe it without trying to interfere with it. For anyone who is tired or sleepy or stressed, allow yourself to fall asleep in your meditation for a moment, and when you wake up, continue with your meditation. If you have an itch, then scratch. If you have a lot of thoughts coming through your mind, open your eyes and close them again. If you have aches or pains, then just change position. Anyone who perseveres with meditation and makes it a habitual part of their daily practice will be able to achieve success, if not sooner than later, and all of you eventually will be able to touch upon the transformative inner experiences which lie within before long. So now, each to their own meditation practice in silence for a few more moments now, until we come to the appropriate time. Sappa Buddhanupavena, Sappa Dhammanupavena, Sappa Sankhanupavena Sattha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you would like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position and gently finish your practice. So to continue the conversation about the theory behind meditational attainment, Buddhists believe that success in meditation is not achieved by meditation alone, but the meditation must be built on a foundation of virtues in everyday life. It is thought that no matter how advanced a person's meditation, if they are not established in the 5 precepts, they will not be able to enter the first absorption. If a person has not developed a high-minded sense of conscience, or hiri-ottappa, they will be unable to enter upon the second absorption. However, if they have that quality of conscience, they will have all the qualities of mind of an angel or manusa, even though they still walk this earth. If a person has the habits of spreading loving kindness, is stirred to compassion by others' suffering, congratulates others who have achieved success, and has the virtue of impartiality or equanimity, together known as the divine abidings or Brahmavihara, it will support their mind to enter upon the third absorption. And anyone who trains themselves further until reaching the formless absorptions, then, surprise, surprise, the fourth absorption will be within their reach. Beyond the absorptions, there is a switchover point called the knowledge of the moment of change of lineage, or Gotrabhuyana, which marks the point where meditation switches from mundane attainments to transcendental attainments that include the paths and fruits of nirvana. To reach this point, practice needs to be underpinned by the Noble Eightfold Path, which shows that the Eightfold Path is a mechanism at the very heart of Buddhist practice. Some Buddhist traditions talk of bodies of enlightenment which are attained at this level, but more common is the allusion to the eye of enlightenment, which emerges at this level of attainment, a capacity for insight vision that allows the practitioner to examine the Noble Truth clearly on sequentially deeper levels, gradually reducing the number of defilements in the mind. And when the defilements become permanently overcome, the practitioner will be able to become a stream enterer or sotapanna, once returner or sakadagami, non-returner or anagami, or an enlightened person or arahanta, thereby escaping any further rebirth. So before we finish today, perhaps we need to reflect on a few important takeaways from the rather technical task of talking about the overview of meditation's role in Buddhism. There are 4 points I would like to pick up on. Firstly, misunderstandings to do with samatha vipassana. Secondly, the perils of adopting the wrong approach to meditation. Thirdly, unskillful use of the inner bodies. And lastly, equivalence between meditational attainment and afterlife destinations. So, to start with, in theory, the ability to get some special knowledge would only start happening at the moment you obtain the absorptions in your meditation. In Buddhism, there is a distinction made between 2 stages of meditation. However, some people have exaggerated this distinction further to make an artificial division between what's known as samatha practices, which means practices to do with establishing calm, and practices they perceive as more advanced, the so-called vipassana practices, which involve insight. Most methods of meditation that are complete would incorporate both stages or aspects of meditation. This is because your mind needs to be calm first before it's settled enough to penetrate any new knowledge. It's like you have a new telescope, but if you can't hold the telescope still, then how are you going to get a clear focus to actually see anything through the telescope? According to the method's founder, Dhammakaya is said to be a samatha vipassana technique, which means that it incorporates both aspects we have mentioned, and the 2 aspects actually occur hand in hand. So the calmer your mind becomes, the more access you have to special knowledge. Generally, you have to access such knowledge after the first absorption, and all the 40 of the methods I have mentioned would be labeled as samatha practices or samatha kamatan. But once you get to the first absorption, actually the difference between the 40 different techniques disappears. you find yourself on the same pathway, whatever you practice you used to start out with. By contrast, some retreats for so-called vipassana meditation claim to be superior because you can get to vipassana or insight in only 3 days. But actually, I think they use the term vipassana erroneously because there's a sort of assumption amongst these practitioners that vipassana is a superior method to samatha methods, and therefore samatha is dispensable, so they just cut to the chase and skip directly to vipassana. If you read carefully in the teachings of vipassana teachers like Goenka and Mahasi Sayadaw, they say that those who cannot manage to focus their mind by developing the absorptions, never mind, you can just do dry insight or sutta vipassaka instead, which means that you have to take a mental note each time you catch yourself thinking about things and analyze the fact that you're thinking into obscurity. So according to these techniques, when you've got thoughts coming into your mind, you say thinking, thinking to yourself, and if you're itching, you say itching, itching to yourself. And this is supposed to produce mindfulness, even though the Buddha specifically stated that it's impossible to think about things if you have already entered upon the absorptions. It may be good for certain sorts of people, but it's certainly not good for people who have an anxious disposition. It can actually push them over the edge into a nervous breakdown. So the word vipassana in some places mistakenly has become rather like a trademark that indicates a goal or a specific method of meditation. According to the Pali scriptures, however, vipassana should indicate nothing more than a meditational process that needs to be held in balance with samatha, like two wings of a bird. Any meditation worth its salt needs to have elements of both samatha and vipassana. You don't stop doing samatha at some stage and start doing vipassana. Rather, the more your mind collects calm during your time of practice, the more vipassana will kick in to allow you to access knowledge or inner vision that you didn't have before. The only reason you would need to break off from the method you started with and suddenly do something new called vipassana would be where the method you started with doesn't take you all the way to the absorptions and somehow you need to switch horses midstream. So, just now we heard about people having nervous breakdowns from thinking about the fact that they're thinking. The same sort of problem can also happen from the graveyard practices which I warned you about before. So I'd like to take a few moments to reflect on the possible perils of exposing yourself to a meditation technique unsuited to your disposition. And this is particularly the case for exposure to the more hardcore meditations on the menu, such as the graveyard meditations or meditation on allosomeness. Don't get me wrong, sometimes such exposure can help people in their meditation if they are of the right disposition. And there's a story of a princess in the Dhammapada commentary, and this princess, like in the fairy tale of the Princess and the Pea, wasn't familiar with very much hardship in life. This particular princess was called Ubari. In this particular case, one day the princess was forced to use a public restroom and was shocked to find a heap of writhing maggots there. In fact, she was so shocked that she spontaneously entered upon the first absorption. Later on, she refined her meditation further and consequently was reborn in the Brahma world. So what we can deduce from this particular story is that the princess was probably of the sense desire disposition. However, if you are not a princess filled with sense desire, it may be the case that being exposed to loathsomeness or decomposing human remains might have quite the opposite effect. There's a real-life story I often tell in this connection, which is a story of medical students. Some medical students were having a laugh and they thought they would play a prank at the expense of their roomie. So one day when they were in the autopsy room, they stole someone's arm and they brought it back to their dormitory with them, and they put it in their roomie's bed, with just the fingers showing above the covers. And when the roomie came home completely unprepared and pulled back the bed covers, thinking, who's this person who's hiding under my comforter, he found that there was no person, it was just a person's arm. So they went into a state of shock and were admitted to a mental hospital, and they never recovered again. So in this case, the shock of loathsomeness obviously didn't lead to a good outcome. Generally, these sorts of meditation have the potential to get you the short distance from basic meditation up to the first absorption. It may be effective for those of you who are attached to sense desire, perhaps if you are a young monk enticed by feminine beauty, in which case you can go and calm yourself down by going and looking at some dead beautiful ladies in the morgue. I should add that with all these sorts of meditation, they are designed to be the basis of a visualization which you eventually turn the image to crystal and bring it to your center, because that's where the absorption is going to happen. This applies whether it's the image of a corpse or anything else of a loathsome nature. Unfortunately, we have sanitized our society so much these days that we hide death away. It could be argued that by doing this, we lose contact with the opportunity for exposure to loathsomeness in everyday aspects of life. In the old days, the community used to help clean the corpses of loved ones themselves, and it served as part of the grieving process. Nowadays, all we see is a corpse in a funeral parlor, so beautified with makeup that it looks as if the deceased is going to wake up at any moment. If you ever look at the chanting in Thai temples, you will notice that part of the evening chanting has the recollection, "We are of a nature to die, we have not gone beyond dying," and is chanted daily as a way to bring death to mind a little each day. Not too much to the point of morbid obsession, but just enough to have the awareness that life should be valued because it doesn't last forever. But the good news is, for those of you practicing universally applicable techniques like Dhammakaya meditation on inner light or space, getting the wrong meditation technique for your disposition is not something you really need to worry about. And turning to the subject of inner bodies in other contexts, some people have asked me whether lucid dreaming and astral projection are examples of attaining inner bodies, and whether they are therefore useful for meditators. And my answer would be that both astral projection and lucid dreaming would indeed be examples of using the astral body, or in other words, the subtle human body. But since that body is used in a way that you don't have too much conscious control over it, you have to fall asleep or get in a trance first, then it is not to be encouraged. During a dream or astral projection, the danger is that when your subtle human body goes outside of the physical human body to do some exploring, the thread of consciousness which links between the two bodies could become disconnected, and there's a possibility of not being able to come back. Therefore, astral projection and lucid dreaming should not be considered as substitutes for proper meditation. And last but not least, I'll leave you with a few thoughts on the equivalence between states of mind and realms of existence. Because a situation might be imagined where a person is able to attain, for the sake of argument, the third absorption, which is endowed with all the angelic qualities of high-minded conscience. If at the time they have achieved this, perhaps while meditating, their heart were to give out, while the mind is still immersed in that mental state, when the mind is forced to disconnect from the now dead body, Buddhists believe that what was a temporary plane of consciousness will translate into a long-term realm of existence, where the mind component will be attracted towards a place of existence on the same wavelength as the prevailing mental quality. The spiritual component of that individual, which outlives their human body, will then take up residence in that realm for as long as the accumulated good karma of that individual can support. As there are many possible wavelengths of the mind, Buddhism talks of a similar number of realms of rebirth. But here, in brief, attaining the first absorption would lead to rebirth in the human realm, dependent on the karma that person has accrued. The second absorption would lead to rebirth in the heaven realms. The third absorption would lead to rebirth in the form Brahma realms. And the fourth absorption would lead to rebirth in the formless Brahma realms. Enlightened states of attainment would lead to no further rebirth or rebirth in the fortunate realm of your choice. So this session has dealt with the means by which Buddhists purify the mind. In the next session, taking up from where this session has left off, we will examine a Buddhist version of transition at death and speculate in more detail on afterlife destinations. So we come to the time in our live stream when we open up to questions sent in by viewers in advance. Today the question comes from Kathleen of Glendora, California. She writes, I enjoyed your previous Sunday Buddhist class on the avoidance of defilements, but I have a few questions. In fact, 3 connected questions. Firstly, since Buddha was without defilements, am I correct in thinking he no longer needed to worry about avoiding defilements? Hi, Kathleen, and thank you for your questions. On the Buddha's avoidance of defilements, I should clarify that personally, whether the Buddha avoided defilements or not, no longer affected his personal chances of entry into parinibbana, which was a foregone conclusion. But the reason the Buddha needed to continue to do good deeds and avoid unwholesomeness was mostly to avoid scandal and gossip that might bring Buddhism into disrepute for those practicing it, in his own generation and for future generations. Therefore, he had to be careful about his behavior to uphold the good name of Buddhism in the eyes of skeptics or potential denigrators of the tradition, which you might refer to as defilements to Buddhism as a whole. So as a second part to the question, since the Buddha gained special powers through his enlightenment, am I right in thinking he could use these powers to avoid evil attacks? Okay, so it's true that anyone who has done a lot of good deeds will have more special power to draw upon when confronted by attacks from evil. And this can be seen with the Buddha even before his enlightenment, when he confronted the hordes of Mara who tried to deflect him from his intention to become enlightened. What you notice from that part of the Buddha's biography, however, is that he fought back by bearing witness to all the 10 perfections he cultivated in his past, which you could say is the accumulated virtues from doing so much goodness over the course of many lifetimes. Watch out though, because as you get more powers, you make yourself a bigger target for the attacks of evil, and even after the Buddha had become enlightened, he was still subject to attacks, some of which he could solve, like persecution by Devadatta or Magandiya, but some which he couldn't manage to avoid. Like having to suffer from a drought and famine and not getting the chance to extend his lifetime beyond 80 years. So in conclusion, having enlightenment both upgrades your ability to avoid evil, but it also puts you in the major league and paints a target on your back for temptations, so be careful. The last part of the question is, can an average person clear their defilements enough to gain some of the powers to avoid defilements and protect themselves from evil attacks? The answer to this part of the question, luckily, is a yes. We don't have to wait to become enlightened to start protecting ourselves from the attacks of evil. We have seen from the lecture last time that there are 3 strategies to avoid evil: situational, planned, and transcendental avoidance. The transcendental avoidance alone is the domain of those who have reached the stages of enlightenment, like the Buddha or Kutamitta's, the hunter's wife. For mere mortals like ourselves, there still remains situational avoidance and planned avoidance. Situational avoidance means that we have to have a high sense of conscience and study carefully about the effects of our karmic action in order to make the choices in our lives that will protect us from picking up evil that would otherwise attack us. Even more efficient than this is the planned avoidance strategy, which means upholding the 5 precepts, which will take care of the 5 main karmic vulnerabilities which we have to being attacked by evil. As our teacher in Thailand, the Venerable Tachiwo, advises, all we need to do is make sure that any day that we have not yet undertaken to keep the 5 precepts that we should not dare to leave the house. And in this way, you don't need to have magic powers in order to deflect any evil that crosses your path. Before today, let me finish up with a quick mention about temple support and a news updates about the availability of meditation teaching in English. Those of you who like to visit the temple in Azusa to bring offerings, please be informed that we are still using the offering site in the parking lot next to the main temple building between 10 and 11 a.m. each day. If you have trouble with the passcode or at the gate or wish to visit at a different time, please call Jenny on 562-716-2961. There will be at least one monk on standby in PPE to receive your offering and give you a short blessing. English-speaking monks will be on duty on most weekdays. A short ceremony for 5 precepts, meditation and a blessing are given on the weekends starting at 10:45 a.m. And for those unable to visit in person, all the other ways of accepting money transfers to DIMC are still available, whether it be mailing checks, bank transfer, Zelle, or Venmo. Needless to say, the whole temple would like to rejoice in the merits of all continuing to take the opportunity to support the temple in this way. Meditation continues to be valuable in tackling lockdown fatigue, and in this respect, despite the relegation to the yellow tier here at the temple, we are still in a position where we have no face-to-face teaching sessions for the interim. You can, however, continue to access Dhamma teachings in English through several convenient channels. For aficionados of Zoom meetings, you can access the Inner Peace channel content by joining the Zoom channel ID 970-1192-2337, meeting passcode 072, and as you will see from the updated program schedule on the slide, content is available for most of the day now, 7 days a week, and brings together all the usual programming from our temple with the English and Spanish content from various branches across the US. The times shown on this particular slide are for the West Coast. For content local to Azusa, you can continue to follow teachings at the YouTube channel called Peace Point Meditation or the Facebook page of Peace Point Meditation. For those of you who are particularly interested in my talks, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, which I have set up in my own name. And according to the current Peace Point schedule, every Sunday morning you have got me with live material and archive material on alternating Sundays. Venerable Sopon appears every Thursday evening. The Monday and Friday Peace Silence sessions from Peace Point have been postponed for the interim owing to even more teaching monks being away in Thailand. Families listening in may be interested in the special show for children in English known as Shining Stars that goes out between 6 and 6:30 p.m. every Monday evening with bedtime stories and meditation short enough to keep the attention of younger listeners. Outside of the live streams and on-demand programming, you can also download the MindGem app for free, allowing you to listen to meditation and Dhamma talks in English on your cell phone, even when you are offline. It now has push notifications to keep you up to date with upcoming activities on the Inner Peace channel. So this session we have looked at the topic of purifying the mind. For my next live session with you, which will, fingers crossed, be a week on Sunday morning, we'll be moving on to look at something along the lines of death and dying. For good measure, I would like to remind viewers, you can email your questions about meditation and what you've heard in the lecture to the email address as you can see spelled out in the slide. And I'll do my best to answer these on my next session. In the meantime, try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness or complacency in the face of the virus, maintain a positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Hopefully, as a result of today's session, you will have the confidence in your meditation practice, which is boosted by the new theoretical knowledge and background which I provided today. So for today, this is me, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, signing off for this session. So long, folks, and stay safe.